Welcome back, viewers, to the PI Show. We're talking about manual handling in the workplace and WorkCover legislation and case law relating to that topic. Before the break, we were talking about the case of Hopgood and the Wodonga Regional Health Service. Tony, as I was saying before the break, the nurse, the worker in question that was injured, was trying to lift and pull over a 130-kilogram man who was choking to death.
Well, John, 130 kilos, but dead weight.
Exactly.
Because he's not given any assistance, Dean. So really, when you start applying all the forces and
it's even more.
It could be a lot higher than that.
It's even more. And her evidence was, if I don't do it now, he will die.
That's it.
Now, the defendant, the hospital said, you did not go by the regulations. You're not supposed to do that. That you're supposed to get help and basically wait. But her evidence was, if I didn't do that, he would die.
What happened, Dean? What did the court find?
Well, the court found in her favour, and interestingly, the implementation of changes made by the employer afterwards shows, in fact, that the system of work was, in fact, faulty.
How many people were on working that night, John?
At the time...
There was another nurse and a doctor attending to someone else in emergency.
Exactly, and they weren't available.
Yeah.
Now, afterwards, a couple of years later, they changed the system of work whereby 4 people were now working at the same time.
Well, I had 2 nurses and 2 doctors on duty.
Exactly.
And so the whole system changed.
Exactly.
And mind you, it didn't change after the decision. It changed before the decision. So they identified soon after this particular plaintiff got injured.
About a year later. So.
Yeah.
Now, it's a claim for pain and suffering and economic loss damages. She was successful. The defendant made an application for a dismissal of the judgment on the basis that there was no alternative form of work. Tony, interesting.
Which is nonsense, because shortly after she got injured, they implemented a new system of work where it would have eliminated her having to lift this patient on her own, Dean.
Yeah, that's correct. And had it been implemented in the first place, undoubtedly she never would have suffered this injury to begin with.
That's exactly right.
So,
viewers, what I want to do now is, because we're talking about this manual handling and it's a very touchy subject in a profession and also with WorkSafe, we've got a short video footage we want to go to and then we'll discuss it. So we'll go to that now.
Oh, Lance, forget the gear. Got no time. Just get it down yourself, will you?
Ronnie Wenzel!
You're his manager.
And today, you're playing for your workers' safety. By having him keep doing it that way, you're giving him a big chance to take home a major injury. Like this prolapse disc that comes with spinal surgery, 2 weeks hospital, and let's throw in 6 months rehab. Are you ready to spin now, Ronnie?
Dean, what did you think of that?
Interesting. I mean, I know people might look at it and laugh initially, but, you know, when you hear about how people get injured, it is comical in a sense. So, you know, sometimes you've got to look at things differently to sort of, you know, learn from it, I guess.
Well, Tony, it's trying to get the attention of the viewers, and especially the young workers. But, Tony, I thought I saw Benny Hill running through that ad.
No, he works at WorkSafe. But can I just say this? The part that really got me was not so much him lifting it, which is what the ad's all about, but the fact that his supervisor is insisting that he does it straight away. What are you supposed to do, Johnny? Well, do you do what that worker did the other day, working for Armaguard, where he told his employer to GF, got sacked and then got his job reinstated?
And one of the problems is we can't assume that, let's say, you know, there might be people who could stand up for themselves, they might be educated, but there are people who need that job, who don't speak English, who are intimidated by their employers. They have no choice. So it's very difficult to put yourself in that position, but commercials like that do show that people don't have a choice.
Well, John, the super was very, very forceful and intimidating. What would you do as a worker if you're in his shoes?
Look, I know what I would do.
Apart from belting him, what would you do?
I'd say, look, that is a very dangerous system and way that you want me to do that work. Why don't we, you know, try and get that trolley back so I can use the trolley and put it back on the trolley? But we know, Tony, and we see clients all the time, they feel the pressure, they know their jobs are already on the line, they don't want to make waves, and really they're trying to, you know, get through the day. But at the same time, workers, you do need to stand up and say, look, hold on.
Enough's enough, I'm not doing it.
Hold on, I might suffer an injury here.
That's it. Look, I guess, Dean, what you said was the concern is that you've got to work with this person day to day.
Yeah.
So it's not just that specific day. But the message is pretty clear from WorkSafe. Don't do anything silly, and most accidents are stupidity.
But Tony, at the same time, and this is a continual issue I have with WorkSafe, they try to put the onus on the worker to say no, when really, in reality,
That's a good point.
that advertisement should be pointed at the employer
At the supervisor.
and at the supervisor, not to say that in the first place.
Well, there might be a sequel to this, Ab. What we'll do is we'll point the finger at the supervisor and say, right, think twice, and then tell them how to do the job safely.
Yeah, but John's right. I mean, the first instinct is to say, why doesn't the worker speak up? Why doesn't he ask for assistance? Why doesn't he ask for mechanical aid? When, in fact, the employer should be offering this when he's giving him the duty. So we've got to shift our focus a little bit more to the actual people in control.
Just on that, because time's moving, Griffson, State of Queensland. You want to give me the facts, Steve?
Yeah, well, this involved, it's a Queensland case, but relevant in the sense that the injured worker was lifting a soda lime canister in a very awkward position, so above head height roughly, and he suffered an injury in doing so. I think the facts were that 70% of the weight was heavily weighted towards
one side,
so he suffers a sudden injury. I think one of the other factors in this case was as a system of work issue. It wasn't just this particular incident. I wouldn't have thought, John.
Exactly. The Court of Appeal found again that there was no assessment of the risks involved in the manual handling of the work duties of the worker, and really that's what we're trying to say tonight, Tony, isn't it? That
it was an awkward task.
Exactly.
Reading this case, John, I just couldn't for the life of me work out how do you make it safer. It was an awkward canister.
Well, maybe where those canisters are actually stored, they should be stored at a lower level, so then the reaching is not as high, and you're not placing the pressure on the back. And really, this is what all these cases are on about, Tony, that the employer must make a risk assessment pursuant to the regulations as to what this work requires and how it affects the body.
Okay, if the employer's not prepared to do the risk assessment, Dean, perhaps in those circumstances, the worker should do their own risk assessment, then sit down and speak to the employer and work out a way where the job can be safer.
Look, that's where unions obviously can come in and assist. I think one of the things that gets lost in all this is the regulations and the guides that regulate manual lifting. They're minimum standards. They are standards that you should never fall below, but yet a lot of these cases, it's laughable that they don't even meet minimum standards. It's just unbelievable.
Dean, that's a very good point, and also want to thank you for coming on the show.
No problem.
And we've got to go to a sponsors break, viewers, and after the break we'll be doing the mailbag. So please stay tuned.